Hi, my name is Alicia Gillies and I will be delivering this webinar in response to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Let's get started. Many critics have argued that Shelley's interest in scientific pursuits during the Victorian era was in no way connected to an ethical questioning of the role of scientists. Rather, these critics suggest it was a tribute to the innovators of her time. Today, however, many readers interpret Frankenstein as a warning against irresponsible scientific pursuits. The primary question that I will be answering with supportive evidence from the novel and informative documents detailing modern scientific pursuits is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein a warning or homage to modern scientists? After my close examination and analysis of the novel, I personally believe it to be a warning. In Frankenstein, Mary Shelley warns that with the advent of science, natural philosophical questioning is not only futile, impractical, but also dangerous. In attempting to discover the mysteries of life, Victor Frankenstein, the protagonist of the novel, assumes that he can act as God, or the modern Prometheus. He disrupts the natural order of things, creating life out of lifeless matter. First, to understand the context of Mary Shelley's hidden message, we must try to understand her perspective on science, and to do so, we must recognize her life experience and the time period in which she was brought up. I'm going to focus more on her life before 1818, since that's when Frankenstein was published. Therefore, whatever her life experience up to then is relevant to the novel. So, Mary Shelley was born on August 30th, 1797 in London, England. She's the daughter of political writer William Goodwin. Her mother passed away shortly after the birth of Mary. She had an elder sister, Fanny Imlay. Her father remarried in 1801 to Mary Jane Claremont. With that came the addition of two step-siblings and then later on a half-brother. Mary educated herself through her father's extensive library. She published her first poem in 1807. By 1814, she began a relationship with Percy Shelley, which her father did not approve. Later that same year, they fled to England together, accompanied by Mary's stepsister Jane. Her actions caused her to be alienated by her father, who did not speak to her for a very long time. Keep this in mind, since I will be coming back to this for a later argument. Mary had a baby girl in 1815 that passed away shortly after her birth. In 1816, she married Percy Shelley and started to work on her monster tale by 1817. She's only 20 years old by this time. So, preceding 1818, Shelley had kind of a tough upbringing with some tragic losses, which I believe she incorporated in her novel. I don't think that it is a coincidence that the main character of the novel is also subject to tragic loss in his family. Okay, now let's move on to the time period. We're going to focus more on the important scientific discoveries between 1795 and 1818, why these discoveries threatened the society of that time. So, 1796, George Cuvier establishes extinction as a fact. Later on that year, Edward Jenner's smallpox historical accounting. Again, in 1796, Hanaoka Seishu develops general anesthesia, we still use that to this day. In 1800, Alessandro Volta discovers electrochemical series and invents the battery. Again, another big discovery, since we still use batteries. In 1800 again, William Herschel discovers infrared radiation. 1802, Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, teleological evolution, which is a huge discovery where later on Charles Darwin would elaborate. 1805, John Dalton, atomic theory. So, in that short amount of time, there were a handful of important discoveries, which are the fundamental base of what we learn in high school, university, and to this day. And this was very threatening to the society of Mary's time, because religion was very prominent, so there's a lot of religion, and religion would give an explanation of the unknown, but these scientific discoveries were tearing all those theories down. It doesn't matter what religion you are, every religion has a story of how humans came to be, so the story of creation. So now coming back to the novel, Shelley's intentions are clearly to send a message to scientists to not abuse their power of the knowledge that they were gaining. So I think the question that she wanted everyone to think about was, if you can do something, should you? So next, a big theme in the novel that I believe Mary Shelley uses to enforce her message is isolation. She really emphasizes that isolation is destructive. She has that first-hand experience of the negative impact of isolation since she was rejected by her own father, like I said earlier. So obviously in the beginning, Victor isolates himself when he becomes consumed by his ambition of creating life. Then the creature was subject to isolation since he was rejected by his creator and society, and when Frankenstein denies him a mate, he lashes out on Victor, and the creature destroys everyone that Victor cares about to make him suffer. So here's a quote that the creature says, "Shall each man," cried he, "find a wife for his bosom, and each beast have his mate, and I be alone?" So he's just very lonesome and he wants someone to be with. And obviously he's feeling the negative impact of isolation. So it's a need for humans and animals to have someone. And this is proven by Henry Harlow with his experiments on social isolation on monkeys. So Harlow would place newly born monkeys in isolation chambers for up to 1 year, with an inanimate surrogate mother in the chambers, one made of wire which carried milk, and the other of cloth. And he discovered that the monkeys had a tendency to go to the mothers made of cloth rather than wire. They would choose comfort over food, which is pretty interesting and underlines the importance of just not being alone, and the comfort of having someone is very important for animals and humans as well. Today, isolation is still seen a lot, for example, in animal testing and zoos. And it's not always easy to recognize the stress behaviors since most of us only know these wild animals from seeing them in zoos. So stress behaviors can be repetitive movements, pacing back and forth, head bobbing, rocking repeatedly, retracing their steps, sitting motionless, or biting the bars, their enclosures, or themselves. A lot of these animals who are being isolated are subject to such symptoms and are not healthy. So obviously these animals aren't supposed to be in cages and to be alone. They're supposed to be in their environment. And in Shelley's novel, Victor represents the humans and the creature represents animals. And Victor is punished with severe consequences because of his irresponsible pursuit and how he abused his power. And these are prime examples of humans using their knowledge irresponsibly, and that's why I believe Frankenstein to be a warning to modern scientists. Thank you.